Welcome, wrestling fans and trading card collectors, or if you collect wrestling cards and other sports cards, welcome. This is Wrestling with Cards. I'm your host, Zhan Morning, and this is going to be a show focusing on, as you would expect, wrestling cards. I think there's a void in the hobby. I don't think there's enough information, and honestly, I don't think there's enough attention on the hobby. Just a little bit about my background and why I collect wrestling cards. Well, I collect all other kind of sports cards too. Just quick examples: some LeBron, Pat Mahomes, Giannis, Ronald Acuna. So I've got it down. I know all the base stuff. However, this card right here, obviously everyone knows Hogan. This card has been in my life for as long as I can remember. Luckily, I found it not too long ago in a boxed collection. So it's been in my life all the time. I've been on and off with other sports, baseball, basketball, football, whatever. But wrestling has always been there. It's always something I've collected here and there, even though I've not been a hardcore collector. It's eventually kind of turned into that. So on today's video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how wrestling cards work. This may be completely new to some people. It's just like any other kinds of trading cards. You know, you have non-sports cards, you have magic cards. People collect all kinds of cards. I think wrestling is going to end up being a little bit more relevant than most people think. So here's just a few reasons. They're culturally relevant. You've got The Rock, John Cena. You got guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin. This is one of the Steve Austin rookie cards. Who most of these guys are now in movies, TV shows. You see him everywhere. Ric Flair. I mean, come on, everybody knows how culturally relevant he is. All hip-hop artists, rap artists, people love that guy. Who doesn't love Ric Flair? Hogan's an icon. Everybody knows Hogan. So I think these guys are a little bit more recognizable than the mainstream collectors will acknowledge. ESPN has obviously started covering wrestling, so that's shining more of a light onto wrestling. Obviously predetermined, but they still consider it a sport. So I still consider them sports cards. WWE Network is shining lights on classic guys like these, you know, obviously not on TV as much now, other than commercials. You see Ric Flair and Hogan on commercials, but Ricky Morton, Rock and Roll Express, I would say most kids now have no idea who that is, but with the WWE Network, they can go back and learn the history of the sport, and these guys become more collectible over time. Some other reasons I like wrestling cards: there's less production. This is similar to the 87 Fleer set that the Michael Jordan rookie card's in. Everybody covets that set. This Wrestling All-Stars set, this card is from 1983. The 1982 set and the 83 set are kind of the most sought-after cards. Then you've got the classic WWF stuff from the 80s. Everybody loves that. This is more of an obscure card, but these are all a little bit harder to find. They were mass-produced, sure, but they're not as mass-produced as, say, today's Prism or some of the 90s junk wax stuff from baseball, basketball. Those cards get thrown away, and even if you look up on eBay, a lot of these cards, amongst others, are a lot harder to find. There's also maybe less of a demand, and maybe that's why they're harder to find, but I think the demand's going to start picking up. I know Gary Vee's been talking about wrestling cards for a while now, but you know, he could be right. He seems to be right on a lot of things. But I think just wrestling in itself over time is going to start picking up demand. These are also very low cost compared to a lot of cards. I mean, like I showed off some of these cards beforehand. You guys can kind of guess what the average value are of these. These things are a whole lot cheaper, even though they're in less demand and less print. So if you put all that together, I think it seems like a good investment. If you're like into investment, it's not going to pay off quick, and it may not make you rich, but I think down the road, a lot of these things are going to be worth more than people are looking at them right now. Just some more culturally relevant stuff to drive home that point. You got guys like Cody Rhodes. This is a Cody Rhodes rookie card. He's clearly operating AEW now. More culturally relevant, and some chromium cards. So just like other sports, there's nice shiny things in wrestling too. Everybody knows Andre the Giant. There's also other random wacky stuff in wrestling cards. So you got like these stickers, and these are all classic stuff. These two from the 80s, obviously Taz from ECW. So just like other hobbies, they've got stickers, and there's stuff like relevant relics and autos. So here's a Alondra Blaze cruiserweight belt with auto, and they're numbered, so as you can see, numbered to 40, just like other sports cards. You got more relevant guys. Paul Heyman, obviously Brock Lesnar's manager that most people know him by, but the creator of ECW. This is considered one of his rookie cards. Randy Orton rookie card, one of the more popular stars right now. This could end up down the road being a nice hit. When I was talking about lower price and less production, another thing that I've been doing is looking at the sets. So here, as an example, is a set of the 1995 WCW main event cards. I've been picking these sets up for next to nothing compared to what, again, that I was paying for the Acuñas, the Giannis, stuff like that. So that's another option that I think is going to start picking up, are the sets. It's cheaper to buy the sets a lot of times than it is to buy just the single rookie cards or the single star card you're looking for as far as wrestling cards go. Another thing awesome about wrestling, there's no offseason. So, got this Steve Austin card from 95, or this Randy Orton card. They're still going to be relevant. It's similar to vintage basketball or vintage baseball. You know, people still clamor for that stuff even though those guys aren't playing. That's kind of how I look at most wrestling. I know a lot of people are not fans of today's current product, but I know some collectors that are still collecting stuff from the 80s and 90s and even before that. And the demand for those collectors, it just keeps going even though those guys aren't relevant. Another thing is injuries. So, clearly, if you have injuries with, you know, let's say LeBron's out for the season, maybe that's not a good example because he's just, you know, an all-time great at this point. Everybody's hyping up Acuña Jr., though. Maybe he goes down as soon as the baseball season starts, which, with what's going on right now, who knows when that's going to be. But he could go down at any minute. This card could just plummet in value, and you may never see him again, as opposed to where Hogan, Ric Flair, even Ricky Morton, these guys aren't going anywhere. These cards are still culturally relevant. They get injured. If they pass away, obviously, because especially these two legends getting up there in age, eventually those cards could go up, but beside the point, if you get active guys, again, Randy Orton, still active, if he goes down with an injury, it's not necessarily affecting his card prices. So that's another great thing about wrestling cards is injuries don't affect anything. There's also prospecting. You know, you can get, I showed you some of the rookie cards earlier. There's modern rookie cards as well that people can take chance on, kind of like people take chances on the baseball prospects or football rookies. So there's also prospecting, but there's also kind of looking at the futures. Again, I think these sets, for example, this Hogan card right on the top of this set is his first WCW card ever. So I think the sets are going to start picking up, and some of the other mainstream wrestlers appeal as well. So going forward on this show, I'm just going to be talking about cards, necessarily reviews, but you know, a little bit of the history of specific cards, looking at set overviews, set reviews, thoughts and opinions about the hobby. Hopefully I can get some thoughts and opinions from you, the watchers. We can get Q&As going, probably do some box breaks. You never know what we're going to do, but I'm just so excited to be bringing wrestling card information to all the viewers out there. I know there's some out there now, but it just, like I said earlier, seems like there's a void, and I'm hoping to bring a lot of that information to you and hopefully enlighten people on the great hobby that's wrestling cards, and hopefully get more people excited and into the hobby. Thanks for watching. If you think this is going to be a show for you, you want to know more about wrestling, you want wrestling cards, and sports cards in general, I may do some random sports card stuff periodically. There's enough of that stuff out there, though. We're focusing mainly on wrestling. That sounds like it's going to be for you. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon, turn on notifications, and follow me on all social media platforms. All the links are going to be below in the description. So until next time, see ya, wrestling fans.